Welcome to a curvy girl romance unlike any you've heard before. Ava, the self-assured owner of a dusty bookshop, never imagined her quiet life would crash into a billionaire werewolf love story. Yet when Damian Blackwood, an enigmatic alpha male hiding a brutal past, walks through her door, the line between reality and paranormal romance shatters. Their fated mate connection ignites under the full moon, pulling Ava into a world of claws, cash, and forbidden desire. If you crave a werewolf romance book series where a curvy heroine tames the beast, keep listening, because destiny just sank its teeth in. Rain tapped softly against the windows of the Wandering Leaf, Ava's cozy bookstore nestled at the corner of a quiet street. The golden light inside glowed like a beacon against the grayness outside, reflecting off shelves lined with stories, secrets, and forgotten dreams. The scent of aged pages, vanilla candles, and fresh coffee lingered in the air. Ava stood behind the counter, a novel in one hand, a steaming mug in the other. She was curvy, confident, and carried herself with a warm charm that made people feel like they belonged, much like the bookstore itself. This shop was her world, a little island where magic was real, and every customer was a character waiting to unfold. The door creaked open, and a gust of cool air swept in, trailing droplets and the faint scent of sandalwood. She looked up, and time seemed to pause. A tall man stepped inside, his coat dripping, his dark hair damp. He carried an intensity as if carved out of shadows and rain. But it was his eyes that caught her breath, piercing, gray like storm clouds, holding the kind of stories you don't find in books. "Evening," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "Sorry for the mess?" Ava blinked, recovering quickly. "Rain's not a mess. It's just nature being dramatic." He smiled slightly, and something about the curve of his lips made her stomach flip. He wandered between the shelves, hands sliding over spines as if they whispered to him. She watched discreetly, pretending to read. There was something mesmerizing about him, how he moved, how he paused like he was listening to more than silence. Finally, he stopped, pulling out a worn, leather-bound volume. He brought it to the counter. "You know this one?" he asked. Ava glanced at the cover. "The Garden of Forgotten Things." Her eyes widened. "That's rare. Only a few prints ever made. How did you even—" "Found it tucked behind an old dictionary," he said, placing it gently on the counter. "It called to me." Ava studied him. "You don't strike me as someone who believes books call to people." His smile deepened, almost wistful. "You'd be surprised what I believe." She rang it up, her fingers brushing his as he handed over a card. The touch was brief, but electric. "Name's Ava," she said, almost without thinking. He looked up, those eyes locking with hers. "Liam." Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but charged, like the moment before thunder. He slipped the book into his coat. "Thank you, Ava, for the warmth and the story." The bell above the door jingled as he stepped back into the rain. Ava moved to the window, watching him walk down the street, disappearing into the blur of night. "I'll return. Save me a story." And just like that, the quiet of her bookstore felt a little louder, a little brighter, as if a new chapter had begun. Damian Blackwood was no ordinary man. As a billionaire and the feared alpha of the Blackwood werewolf clan, he carried the weight of his pack's legacy on his broad shoulders. The town of Ravenswood had always been his refuge, a quiet place where humans rarely glanced too closely and supernatural tensions simmered beneath the surface. But now, Damien was hiding. A ruthless war was brewing between rival supernatural factions, a conflict that threatened to engulf the entire region in chaos. To protect his pack and himself, he had retreated into the shadows, keeping a low profile, his wolf instincts on constant alert. Every rustle of leaves, every flicker of movement in the night made his senses sharpen. Yet, even his keen instincts couldn't prepare him for the pull he felt whenever Ava was near. Ava was unlike anyone Damien had ever met. A fierce woman with fire in her dark eyes and a quiet strength that commanded respect. She moved through the town with a confidence that intrigued him. There was something about her, something deeper, buried beneath layers of secrets, that called to his wolf in a way he couldn't understand. Damien watched her from a distance one evening as she closed up the small bookstore she managed. The soft glow of the street lamp cast shadows on her face, highlighting the curve of her jaw and the determination in her gaze. His wolf growled low in his chest, restless and confused. He wasn't supposed to get involved. The war was his burden, and drawing attention to himself was dangerous. But Ava had already pulled him into her orbit, and the shadows around her whispered of mysteries he needed to uncover. The next night, Damien found himself walking past the bookstore again, his mind unable to shake the image of Ava. She looked up as he approached, surprise flickering in her eyes, quickly replaced by something warmer. "Damien Blackwood," she said softly, using his full name as if it held some significance. He nodded, his usual guarded expression softened by a rare vulnerability. "I didn't expect to see you here." Ava smiled, a mixture of curiosity and challenge in her eyes. "Maybe I like being where the secrets are." That was the moment Damien realized Ava was no ordinary woman. There was a hidden depth to her, something that might change everything he thought he knew about himself and the brewing war. They began to meet in secret, exchanging stories beneath the cloak of night. Damien shared fragments of his world, the weight of leadership, the curse and gift of his wolf. Ava, in turn, revealed pieces of her own past, scars from a life lived on the edges of light and darkness. As days turned into weeks, their connection deepened, blurring the lines between duty and desire. Damien's wolf ached with longing whenever Ava was near, and for the first time in years, he let himself hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a future beyond the war and shadows. But danger lurked just beyond the horizon. Rival clans were closing in, hunting for the power Damien protected. And Ava's secrets, one she guarded fiercely, might hold the key to ending the conflict or igniting it into full-scale destruction. One night, as they met beneath the ancient oak at the edge of town, Damien took Ava's hand, his eyes dark and serious. "You need to tell me everything," he said, his voice low. She hesitated but nodded, stepping closer. "There's more at stake than you know, Damien. And if we don't face it together, neither of us will survive the shadows." In that moment, the billionaire alpha and the fierce woman stood united, ready to confront the secrets that threatened to tear their world apart. Because in the shadows, even the darkest secrets can lead to the brightest light, if you're willing to face them together. Ava tossed and turned in her sleep, the strange dream swirling in her mind like a tempest she couldn't escape. Shadows moved just beyond her sight, whispering secrets in voices she couldn't understand. One moment, she was standing alone in a vast moonlit forest, the trees towering high like ancient sentinels. Then a low growl echoed through the air, sending a shiver down her spine. She tried to run, but her feet felt rooted to the ground, and then nothing but silence. When she finally woke, her heart pounded so fiercely it felt like it would burst. The dreams felt so vivid, so real, like memories from another life. But Ava didn't believe in fate or magic or any of the things her grandmother used to whisper about when she was a child. She was practical, grounded, until today. Across town, Damien's senses were on high alert. His wolf growled low in his chest, a primal warning that something was changing. He had been a part of the supernatural world longer than most, walking the fine line between human and wolf. But nothing had prepared him for the pull he felt toward Ava, the unmistakable ancient force that marked her as his mate. The moment he saw her, something inside him shifted. His wolf stirred, howling deep within his soul. He knew the legends, the stories passed down through generations. The wolf who finds his fated mate never lets her go. It was destiny, written in the stars and carved into their bloodline. But Ava, she didn't even know the world that Damien belonged to. She had no idea about shapeshifters, about packs and rival clans, about the centuries-old war simmering beneath the surface of human life. To her, this was just an ordinary life filled with work, friends, and the small joys she could grasp. That night, Damien found himself walking the quiet streets near Ava's apartment, hidden by shadows, watching her window glow softly with the light of a bedside lamp. The dreams had told her something was coming, something she wasn't ready for. He remembered the first time he'd met her, though it was only a glimpse. Her laugh, warm and light, had stirred something fierce and protective in him. He had tried to stay away, knowing how dangerous the world he lived in could be, but fate had other plans. Inside her room, Ava stared at the ceiling, her mind restless. She didn't understand the dreams, but the pull she felt toward something unseen was growing stronger by the day. She wondered if she was losing her mind. Suddenly, a shadow flickered at the edge of her window. She gasped and sat up, heart racing. For a brief moment, the silhouette of a tall man with eyes glowing faintly in the darkness appeared. Then he was gone. The next morning, Ava found a small, smooth stone on her windowsill. It was cool to the touch and glimmered faintly with an otherworldly light. She tucked it into her pocket, unsure why, but feeling compelled to keep it. Damien knew this was just the beginning. The pull of fate was relentless. Soon, Ava would have to choose whether to step into his world with all its danger and mystery, or walk away forever and risk losing the bond that tied them together. But fate, he knew, was not something to be ignored. The night air was cool and thick with the scent of blooming jasmine. Ava had always loved the quiet charm of her city's old district, where cobblestone streets twisted through shadows and history whispered from every brick. Tonight, however, the tranquility was shattered. She was crossing the narrow street near the cafe when a speeding car rounded the corner, its headlights blinding and sudden. Time seemed to slow. Heart-pounding, Ava froze. The car was too close, and the driver wasn't slowing down. Then, like a flash of lightning, a hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Strong, sure, pulling her backward just as the car screeched past, missing her by inches. Ava's breath hitched as she stumbled into the arms of her rescuer, Damien. His dark eyes were wide, alert, and something unspoken flickered in them. A wild, fierce intensity that made Ava's pulse race for reasons she couldn't explain. "Are you okay?" His voice was low, urgent, laced with something almost feral beneath the polished surface. Ava nodded, still shaking, trying to catch her breath. I think so. You saved me." He helped steady her, his grip firm yet gentle. As her heart slowed, she glanced up, studying him more closely than she ever had before. Damien, the enigmatic millionaire with the effortless charm and the expensive suits, had always seemed like a puzzle she could never quite solve. But tonight, something was different. "You have lightning-fast reflexes," she said, half laughing, trying to ease the tension. "Most people wouldn't have caught me like that." His lips twitched, barely a smile. "Let's just say I'm used to reacting quickly." Ava's gaze narrowed, curiosity sparking. There was something primal in the way he moved, something beyond the polished veneer of a wealthy playboy. She caught a glimpse of sharpness in his eyes, like a predator watching, but not a cruel one, protective. As they stood on the dimly lit street, the sounds of the city buzzed around them, but Ava felt as if time had shifted. She was suddenly hyper-aware of Damien's presence, the way his muscles tensed and relaxed, the subtle scent that clung to him, earthy and wild like the forest after rain. "Damien, what are you?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. He stiffened for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. Then he smiled, a slow, knowing smile that held secrets and danger all at once. Something you wouldn't believe. Ava's heart hammered. She wanted to press for more, but a distant howl echoed faintly through the night air. Damien's eyes darted toward the sound, darkening. "I need to go," he said abruptly, "but I'll check on you tomorrow." Before she could respond, he was gone, slipping away into the shadows like a ghost. Ava stood there, her mind racing. The near accident, his superhuman reflexes, the wild intensity in his eyes, it all pointed to something extraordinary. Damien wasn't just a charming, rich guy. He was something more. Her curiosity flared into something fierce. Whatever Damien was hiding, Ava knew this was only the beginning. The first spark had been lit, and she was determined to find out the truth. The air between them crackled with electricity, thick with the weight of unsaid feelings and fierce desire. Ava's heart pounded so loud she thought Damien must hear it, but he stood perfectly still, his eyes dark and troubled, locked onto hers as if trying to decipher a secret he didn't want to admit. Without thinking, Ava closed the small distance between them, her breath hitching as their faces drew closer. The world around them seemed to dissolve. No sound, no movement, only the fierce beat of two hearts desperately seeking connection. Then, suddenly, Damien's lips met hers. It was nothing like the gentle kisses Ava had imagined. It was wild, raw, urgent. His hands trembled slightly as they cupped her face, pulling her closer as if he needed to feel her more deeply to keep some part of himself grounded. For a moment, Ava melted into the kiss, losing herself in the fire burning between them. But then, as quickly as it began, Damien pulled away, his breath ragged, eyes clouded with pain. "I can't," he whispered, voice hoarse. "I'm sorry, Ava. I don't want to hurt you." Confusion knitted Ava's brow. "Hurt me? What are you talking about?" she demanded, searching his face for answers that weren't there. Damien swallowed hard, his jaw clenched tight. This isn't just about us. There are things you don't know, things I'm trying to keep you safe from. If I let myself lose control, it could destroy everything." Ava's pulse quickened, but not from desire. Fear prickled at the edges of her mind. Safe from what? "Damien, you're scaring me." "Why won't you just tell me?" He looked away, hands clenching into fists at his sides. "Because the truth, it's dangerous. If it gets out, it could put you in danger too." She stepped closer, reaching out to touch his arm, but he flinched, stepping back. "Please, Ava, you have to trust me on this." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, frustration and hurt flooding her chest. "Trust? How can I trust you if you keep shutting me out? I'm tired of secrets." Damien's gaze softened, a flash of regret crossing his face. "I'm trying to protect you, even if it means pushing you away." Ava shook her head, determination setting in. "I don't want your protection if it means being left in the dark. I deserve to know what's going on. I deserve the truth." For a long moment, Damien said nothing. Then, finally, he spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "There's a darkness following me, a part of my past I can't escape. If I'm honest, it's not just my life on the line anymore, it's yours too." Her heart skipped a beat, the weight of his words settling over her like a shadow. "Then let me face it with you. Don't push me away because of fear." He looked into her eyes, vulnerability shining through the storm of his emotions. Slowly, the walls he'd built around himself began to crumble, revealing the man beneath. The man who wanted to hold her close, not push her away. "All right," he breathed, a fragile smile breaking through. "But once you know, there's no turning back." Ava nodded, courage igniting within her. Whatever dangers lay ahead, she was ready. Together, they would face the unknown, even if it meant risking everything. Ava's breath came in shallow gasps as she darted through the tangled forest, heart pounding like a wild drumbeat. Behind her, the sounds of struggle and snarls echoed in the night. She didn't want to look back, but she couldn't stop the image from burning itself into her mind. Damien! He was no longer the boy she thought she knew. Only minutes ago, she had watched his form twist and contort in ways that defied reason. His skin rippled, muscles bulging grotesquely, and then fur. Sharp teeth gleamed where his mouth had been. His eyes, once warm and familiar, had turned a feral yellow, glowing with an unearthly light. A wolf, not by choice, but by instinct, by fight. Ava pressed her back against a rough tree trunk, shivering. She tasted fear like bitter ash on her tongue. How could he have hidden this from her? All the times they had laughed, shared secrets beneath the stars. Had it been a lie, the forest around her was dark and thick, the moonlight filtering through the canopy in silver shards. She forced herself to breathe, willing her legs to stop trembling. But no matter how much she tried, the image of Damien shifting back and forth between man and beast haunted her. She remembered the fight, the reason it had happened. Damien had tried to protect her from a stranger in the shadows. His voice had been low and growling, unnatural. When the attacker lunged, Damien's body had convulsed, and the wolf within had taken over, fighting savagely and mercilessly. It was terrifying and awe-inspiring. Ava's fingers clenched into fists. Was he still the same Damien? The kind boy who always helped her with her books? The one who smiled when she stumbled over her words? Or was he a monster? Tears stung her eyes. She wanted to run far away, to leave this all behind. But deep down, something refused to let go. A fragile thread of hope. or maybe something stronger. She had always known there was something different about Damien, something mysterious that set him apart, but she never imagined this. Suddenly, a soft rustling from the bushes startled her. Her heart leapt again. Was it him, or the stranger returning? "Damien?" she whispered, her voice trembling. From the shadows, a figure emerged. It wasn't the wolf, but the boy. His clothes were torn and his eyes held a wild intensity, but it was still him. "I'm sorry," he said, voice rough but sincere. "I didn't want you to see that." Ava stared at him, her mind spinning. "Why didn't you tell me?" He looked down, ashamed. "Because I was scared. Scared you'd be afraid of me, or worse, leave." She stepped closer, searching his face. Beneath the fear and the wildness, she saw the Damien she knew, the boy who cared, who fought to protect her, even when it meant losing control. Ava's tears spilled freely now, but this time they were different. They were tears of understanding. "Maybe I am scared," she admitted, "but I'm not going anywhere. Not if you need me." Damien's lips curved into a tentative smile. "You're braver than I thought." The wolf inside him howled softly in the distance, a reminder of what he was, what he struggled to be. But Ava reached out, taking his hand, grounding him in the human world. "Maybe," she whispered, "we can face it together." For the first time that night, the forest felt less dark, less cold, and as they stood there, two souls bound by secrets and strength, Ava realized something she hadn't before. Sometimes the most terrifying truths could lead to the deepest connections. The wind was sharp with the promise of winter as Damien paced the dimly lit room, the weight of 1,000 battles pressing down on his shoulders. His senses, honed sharper than any blade, caught the subtle shift in the air, the scent of danger, thick and unrelenting. Tonight, the enemy had come. A low, menacing growl echoed from the shadows of the street outside. Damien's eyes narrowed. Alpha Kale had arrived. Kale wasn't just any rival. He was the dark alpha of the Northern Pack, infamous for his ruthless tactics and merciless ambition. For years, their enmity simmered beneath the surface, but now Kale had crossed the line. He had come to their town, and more importantly, to Damien's mate, Ava. The thought of her name ignited a fire in Damien's chest. She was everything to him, his anchor, his heart, and Kale knew it. "Damien," a voice whispered behind him. It was Mara, his second in command. "Kale's demanding a meeting. He says if you want to see Ava alive, you come out." Damien clenched his fists, torn between fury and fear. This was a trap. Kale's goal was to draw him out, to expose their kind to the humans around them. If Damien left the safety of their territory, the fragile peace they maintained would shatter. Yet the alternative, leaving Ava to Kale's mercy, was unthinkable. The room felt colder now, the shadows deeper. Damien's gaze hardened. "Prepare the pack," he ordered, "but I go alone." Mara's eyes widened. "You're risking everything. If Kale suspects we're ready, then he underestimates me," Damien interrupted, his voice low and steady. Outside, the moon hung full and unforgiving, casting silvery light on the empty streets. Damien stepped into the night, the weight of his legacy heavy on his shoulders. He could almost hear Kale's mocking laugh carried on the wind. The rendezvous was set at the old abandoned quarry on the outskirts of town. As Damien approached, the sound of footsteps echoed behind him. He turned swiftly, muscles coiling. Kale emerged from the darkness, tall and imposing, a cruel smile etched across his sharp features. His eyes gleamed with cold amusement. "Damien," Kyle purred, voice dripping with venom, "I hoped you'd come. Your little mate is safe. For now." A flash of pain stabbed Damien's heart. "What do you want, Kyle?" "To draw you out," Kyle said simply, "to show the world what happens when the enemy grows complacent." Damien's eyes scanned the shadows. Somewhere nearby, Ava was trapped. His heart hammered painfully in his chest, but his face remained stoic. "If you harm her," Damien growled, "I'll make you regret it for the rest of your miserable existence." Kyle laughed darkly. "Brave words, but are you willing to risk everything? Your pack, your secrecy, your very life?" Damien stepped forward, every nerve alert. "I'll protect her, no matter the cost." Kyle's smile widened. "Then let's see if you can." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. Ava. She was bound, but unbroken, defiant fire in her eyes. "Damien," she whispered, voice steady despite the fear, "don't let him win." A moment of hesitation rippled through Damien's soul. To fight here, exposed, meant risking discovery. The humans could see, the packs could hear. The delicate veil that shielded them all could tear apart. But Kale had underestimated one thing: the bond between mates. With a fierce roar, Damien lunged at Kale, the battle erupting with brutal force. Teeth and claws flashed under the moonlight, the air thick with the raw energy of the clash. Every strike was a message. Ava's life was worth more than secrecy, more than fear. As the fight raged, Damien's pack silently circled the perimeter, ready to intervene but honoring his decision to face Kale alone. Finally, with a final desperate move, Damien overpowered Kale, pinning him to the ground. "Leave this town," Damien snarled, voice trembling with fury and relief. "Or next time, you won't just threaten, you'll lose everything." Kale's eyes burned with hatred, but he knew when the fight was lost. Silently, he vanished into the shadows, defeated but unbroken. Damien turned to Ava, releasing her bonds with gentle hands. Her eyes locked onto his, full of trust and love. "We'll survive this," Damien promised, "together." And as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Damien understood that protecting his mate meant more than secrecy. It meant embracing the fierce power of their bond, no matter the cost. The late afternoon sun filtered softly through the cracked window, casting long shadows across the worn floorboards of the small room where Damien sat, his hands trembling slightly as he gathered the courage to speak. Ava sat across from him, her breath shallow, the echoes of recent chaos still reverberating in her mind. The silence stretched between them, thick and expectant. Finally, Damien broke it. His voice was low, tinged with vulnerability. "There's so much I haven't told you, things I thought I could carry alone, but I was wrong. I need you to know everything, because you deserve the truth." Ava's eyes locked onto his, steady despite the storm inside her. She nodded, signaling him to continue. Damien took a deep breath and began. He spoke of shadows lurking in their world, hidden threats, whispered secrets, and a past he had desperately tried to bury. He told her about the burdens weighing on his shoulders, the mistakes he wished he could undo, and the dangers that now surrounded them both. With each word, the walls Damien had built around himself crumbled a little more. "I've lived in silence for so long," he admitted, voice cracking. "But meeting you, it's like something inside me shifted. You make me want to be better, to face the darkness instead of running from it. I don't want to hide anymore, not from you." Ava's heart ached with empathy, but More than that, a spark ignited inside her. She felt something she hadn't before. Strength. Not the kind forged by battles or victories, but the quiet, fierce power of facing fear and uncertainty head on. For a moment, the room was filled only with the sound of their breathing, and then Ava spoke, her voice steadier than she expected. "You're not alone anymore, Damien. Neither of us is. Whatever comes, we face it together." The weight of her words settled between them like a promise. She realized that the world they inhabited was far harsher and darker than she'd ever imagined. Yet, within that harshness was a purpose, a calling that seemed to reach out to her. She was no longer just a bystander, someone swept along by circumstance. She was part of something bigger, something that required courage she hadn't yet fully tapped into. The days that followed were a blur of preparation and quiet moments shared in stolen breaths. Damien and Ava trained side by side, their movements gradually synchronizing, a dance of trust and unspoken understanding. The bond between them grew stronger, woven from shared fears, whispered hopes, and the knowledge that their lives were now entwined in ways neither could undo. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of gold and crimson, Ava stood on the edge of the world she thought she knew. The breeze tugged at her hair, carrying the scent of earth and distant rain. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the pulse of something ancient and powerful within her. "I'm ready," she whispered to the wind, but it was also a vow to herself and to Damien. When she opened her eyes, Damien was there, watching her with a mixture of pride and something softer, hope. Their hands found each other, fingers entwining naturally as if they had been made to fit together all along. "No more running," Damien said quietly. "No more hiding. We start here, together." Ava squeezed his hand, a fierce smile spreading across her face. Together. In that moment, the world felt different. The shadows seemed less daunting, the path ahead clearer. They had no illusions about the battles to come or the sacrifices required, but they had something that made them stronger than any enemy, a bond born from truth, courage, and the unshakable belief that they could face whatever darkness awaited. Side by side, the night air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, the moon casting a silver glow over the dense forest. Damien's breath was steady but deep, his dark eyes fixed on Ava as she stood before him, illuminated by the pale light. Their connection had grown from quiet glances to fierce, undeniable desire, a bond neither could deny. "Ava," Damien's voice was low, rough with emotion. "This is more than just a promise. It's forever." She nodded, heart pounding in her chest, knowing what this moment meant. The ritual of marking was sacred, ancient, a binding of souls, the sealing of a destiny shared. When an alpha marked his mate, he tied her essence to his, a permanent bond no force could sever. Damien reached out, his hands trembling slightly as they cupped her face. "Are you ready?" His gaze searched hers, seeking the answer in the depths of her eyes. She took a steadying breath. "I'm ready." With a slow, deliberate movement, Damien pressed his palm against her collarbone. A subtle warmth spread from where their skin touched, blossoming into a fierce flame that curled beneath her skin. It was both a burning and a soothing, like fire weaving into her veins, setting her very blood alight. Ava gasped, her fingers clutching at his wrists, anchoring herself as the mark embedded itself deeper, a glowing sigil only visible to those bound by the old magic. The moment the mark settled, she felt it, an unbreakable thread connecting her heart to Damien's. She could feel his heartbeat echoing in her own chest, his emotions bleeding into hers like ripples in a still pond. "You're mine, Ava," Damien whispered, voice thick with reverence and possessiveness. "And I'm yours." She smiled through the rush of sensations, the profound intimacy filling her with both strength and vulnerability. But even in that sacred moment, a shadow crept into Damien's eyes, a flicker of warning, fear. "This mark, it paints a target on you," he admitted reluctantly, voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Not everyone will accept this bond. There are those who will see you as a weakness to exploit." Ava's smile faltered. She knew the dangers, the rival packs, the hunters, the ones who coveted the power of an alpha and would stop at nothing to tear his mate away. But she also knew that standing with Damien was worth any threat. "Then I'll face it," she said fiercely, meeting his gaze. "With you?" Damien pulled her close, the forest around them falling away until there was only the heat between them, the unyielding connection forged in that silent pact. From this moment on, Ava wasn't just a woman. She was marked, chosen, and bound by blood and spirit to an alpha, a destiny that could bring her immeasurable power and love or unimaginable peril. The night whispered its secrets, the stars bearing witness to the birth of a bond that would change everything, for better or worse. Damien had always known that trust was fragile, especially in the world they lived in, where alliances shifted like sand in the desert wind. But he never imagined the betrayal would come from someone so close. The sharp sting of that realization gnawed at him as he stared at the crumpled note in his hands, the words scrawled hastily across the paper. "Ava's location is at the old mill by the river. Move fast." His heart sank. Someone within his circle had leaked Ava's hiding place to Cale's pack, the ruthless rivals who had tormented their people for years. The very thought of Ava, his closest ally and the one person he vowed to protect, trapped in enemy hands, made his blood boil. Damien clenched his fists. He knew Cale wouldn't hesitate to use Ava as a pawn, bargaining for power or revenge. The pack's cruelty was infamous. They took what they wanted without remorse. Without wasting a second, Damien gathered his most trusted warriors. Faces hardened by years of battle mirrored his own determination. They didn't ask questions. There was no time. Every second Ava remained captive was a second too long. The night was moonless, cloaking their movements in shadows as they slipped through the forest toward the old mill. Damien's mind raced, torn between hope and fear. He imagined Ava, defiant, fierce, but vulnerable. She would never surrender easily. But Cale's pack was savage, and he feared for what they might have done. As they neared the mill, the silence shattered. The howls of Cale's wolves echoed through the trees, a chilling reminder that they were walking into the lion's den. Damien's grip tightened on his spear, every muscle coiled for battle. Suddenly, from the darkness, a figure lunged, a fierce warrior from Cale's pack blocking their path. The clash was brutal and swift. Damien fought with everything he had, each strike fueled by desperation. They pressed forward, pushing through Cale's defenses, until finally Damien saw her, Ava, bound and bruised, but alive. Her eyes met his, filled with fierce relief and trust. But the fight was far from over. Kyle emerged from the shadows, his expression twisted with rage and triumph. You dare come for her? This is war, Damien. You'll regret crossing me. Damien's voice was cold steel. You took her. You will pay. The battle erupted with savage intensity. Warriors clashed, screams piercing the night. Damien fought like a man possessed, every strike aimed at freeing Ava and ending Quayle's threat once and for all. Amidst the chaos, Damien spotted the traitor, a familiar face among Quayle's ranks. The sting of betrayal cut deeper than any blade. How long had they been feeding secrets to the enemy? How many lives had been risked because of their deceit? With Ava finally free, Damien's priority shifted to escape. But Quayle's pack wasn't ready to yield. They pressed harder, forcing Damien and his warriors to fight through a deadly gauntlet. As dawn broke, the battle slowed, the surviving members of Quayle's pack retreating into the forest. Damien and Ava, exhausted but alive, leaned on each other, the weight of betrayal heavy between them. I won't let this destroy us, Ava whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. Damien nodded. We'll root out the traitor, we'll rebuild, and we'll make sure Quayle's pack pays for this. The betrayal had brought them to the brink of war, but it had also revealed the strength of their bond and the ruthless price of trust. Ava had been gone for what felt like a lifetime, but when she returned to the dense forests, under the silver glow of the full moon, she was no longer the girl who had left. The trials she faced in exile had forged her, not only stronger, but wiser, shaped by the harsh truths of survival and the deep magic of the wild. The werewolf packs had been fractured for years, torn apart by old grudges and battles over territory. Damien, the alpha of the largest pack, had tried to unite them, but distrust ran too deep. Each leader guarded their domain like a wolf with a bone, unwilling to bow or join under one banner. But Ava was different. Her presence brought a hush over the gatherings. When she entered the clearing where the leaders met, her eyes glimmered like molten silver, her movements graceful, but deliberate. She wore a cloak stitched from the pelts of wolves she had met on her journey, a symbol of unity, strength, and respect for the old ways. I am Ava, she said, voice steady and clear. I have walked the edges of this world and faced the darkness beyond the moon's reach. I have learned what it means to be a leader, not just of strength, but of heart. The pack leaders exchanged wary glances. Damien stepped forward, his dark eyes searching hers. And why should we trust you? You left us when we needed you most. Ava did not flinch. Because I know what it's like to be broken and cast aside. I know the price of division. Alone, we are weak, but together, we are unstoppable. She raised her hand, and a soft glow emanated from her palm. The moonlight seemed to respond, bending around her in a shimmering silver aura. The moon chooses its Luna. I am that Luna, not by blood alone, but by spirit. I will unite the packs, not with force, but with honor and truth. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some scoffed, others hesitated, but many could not deny the power in her words and the undeniable pull of the moonlight that crowned her presence. Damien nodded slowly, recognizing the change in her. Then show us, Luna. Show us the path forward. Over the next weeks, Ava moved among the packs like a storm wrapped in moonlight. She met with leaders in secret, healing old wounds with words and actions. She mediated disputes that had simmered for generations, reminding them of their shared heritage and the strength they drew from their ancestors. But uniting the werewolves was no easy task. Shadows lurked within, those who thrived on chaos and division, Ava faced betrayal and attacks meant to break her spirit, yet each challenge only sharpened her resolve. Her connection with the moon grew stronger, guiding her through the darkest nights. One evening, under a sky swollen with stars, Ava stood before the largest gathering the packs had seen in decades. Hundreds of wolves howled in unison, their voices echoing through the valleys like a rising tide. "This is our moment," Ava proclaimed. "Together we reclaim our legacy. Together we rise as one pack, one family." Damien stood beside her, his loyalty unquestioned now. "The age of scattered packs is over. From this night forth we are united. Ava is our Luna, our queen." The crowd erupted, a chorus of acceptance and hope that swept through the forest like wildfire. Ava lifted her head, feeling the moonlight pour over her, a river of silver, blessing her reign. She was not just a leader by right. She was a beacon of unity, a symbol of resilience. The werewolves no longer stood divided in shadows and suspicion. Under Ava's guidance, they would rebuild and grow stronger, bound by the light of the moon and the strength of their bond. The rise of the Luna had begun. Damien's curse was a shadow that loomed over every full moon. Passed down through generations, the curse was cruel and unforgiving. It promised death with the next full moon unless broken by true love's acceptance. No one in Damien's family had survived beyond their 18th birthday, and tonight, Damien would turn 18. The air was thick with tension as the moon began its slow ascent, glowing large and full in the dark sky. Damien stood alone on the edge of the forest, his heart pounding like a wild drum. The curse had always whispered its threats inside him, a growing beast clawing at his insides. He clenched his fists, trying to hold the monster back, but the transformation was inevitable. His skin prickled painfully as coarse fur began to sprout. His hands twisted, fingers becoming claws, and his breath came in ragged gasps. Damien was no longer just a boy. He was a monster. Ava watched from a distance, her eyes wide with fear and sorrow. She had known Damien for only a few months, but in that time, she had come to love him, every part of him, even the cursed darkness. When Damien first confided in her about the curse, her heart shattered for him, but she refused to let fear rule her. She stepped forward now, into the clearing where the monstrous Damien knelt, eyes glowing amber in the moonlight. "I'm here," she whispered. Damien's growl softened as recognition flickered in his wild eyes. "Ava, I'm sorry. You should run." "No," she said firmly, stepping closer. "I won't leave you. Not now. Not ever." The curse was ancient magic, but its hold depended on loneliness and rejection. If someone could love the monster, all the pain, the darkness, the fear, the curse would shatter like glass. That was what Damien's grandmother had told him before she passed. Ava reached out, her hand trembling but steady as it brushed the thick fur on his arm. "You're still Damien, the boy I know, the boy I love." Damien's monstrous form shuddered, and a deep sorrow filled his eyes. "How can you love me like this? I'm dangerous. I'm not human anymore." "You're more than this curse," Ava said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're brave, you're kind, you're everything to me." Her words wrapped around Damien like a warm fire, melting away some of the beast's rage and despair. Slowly, the fur receded, the claws shrinking back into fingers, and the painful transformation reversed. The full moon hung overhead as Damien collapsed into Ava's arms, human once more, but utterly exhausted. "You saved me," he whispered. "No," Ava said softly. "You saved yourself by letting me love you." The curse was broken. The deadly chain that had haunted Damien's bloodline for centuries finally shattered by the purest magic, true love. In the quiet that followed, beneath the moon's gentle glow, Damien and Ava held each other close. The night no longer carried the threat of death, but the promise of a new beginning. Because sometimes love is stronger than any curse. Love this episode of The Curvy Girl Meets the Billionaire Werewolf? Don't forget to like, share, and comment below. Tell us, would you trust a mysterious billionaire with glowing eyes? What would you do if you found out your soulmate was a werewolf? Your thoughts might be featured in the next chapter.